Hello and welcome to Enago's webinar titled How to Boost Citations, Tips for Researchers, in collaboration with the Electrochemical Society, a learned society supporting scientific advancements in the field of electrochemistry and solid-state science and related technology. This session will aim to help research scholars by sharing practical and effective tips to increase the citation of research articles and making a significant impact. Before we begin, I would like to mention that you can send us your questions using the Questions tab in the control panel, and our expert speakers would be happy to answer all your queries at the end of the webinar. Today, we have with us our expert speakers, Dr. Despina Sanadu and Shannon Reed. Shannon joined the Electrochemical Society in September 2016 as Director of Membership Services and was promoted to Director of Community Engagement in January 2019. At ECS, he works to enhance community engagement, increase the value of ECS membership, grow educational and professional development opportunities, and support constituent experiences. Through his experience with academia and scholarly societies, Shannon has in-depth expertise in organizational growth, community development, customer service, diversity and inclusions, and challenging the status quo. Without further delay, I would like to hand over the mic to Dr. Shannon to begin with his session.
Thanks, Neha. Appreciate the introduction. I'd like to give everybody a little bit more background on the Electrochemical Society, ECS. We are a nonprofit professional society that was established in 1902, so we have been around for 120 years. And our mission and objective is to advance the theory and practice at the forefront of electrochemistry and solid-state science and technology and those allied subjects. We have a robust global membership of researchers that provide innovative solutions to major challenges. We also host prestigious meetings twice a year, publish research, and foster education and collaborate with other organizations like Enago. We know that electrochemistry has a broad depth and wide array of technical domain. So we've broken up our technical interest areas into 13 different divisions, ranging from battery and corrosion to sensors, high temperature energy materials and processes, organic and biological electrochemistry, and physical and analytical electrochemistry. ECS does have a membership base. We have approximately 6,500 to 7,000 members. And our membership community helps to facilitate the research and discovery through our ECS meetings by convening scientists around the world, providing professional support through your lifetime career, as well as mentorship opportunities across various stages of your career, and help you build those relationships and nurture your partnership and teamwork. Most aligned with today's webinar, ECS does publish a family of journals. We have the Journal of the Electrochemical Society, which is our flagship journal, being published since 1902, followed by the Journal of Solid State Science and Technology, which was launched in 2012. And most recently, we have launched 2 gold open access journals, ECS Sensors Plus and ECS Advances. You can learn more about this information at electrochem.org/publications. And as I had previously mentioned, we also host meetings We have our upcoming meeting this fall in Atlanta, Georgia from October 9th through the 13th. It is the 242nd ECS meeting, and registration for that event is now open. We will be in Boston, Massachusetts next spring at the end of May, followed by Gothenburg, Sweden next fall of 2023 in October. You can learn more about our meetings at electrochem.org/meetings. And with that brief introduction, I would like to turn everything over to Despina to begin the formal presentation on how to boost citations tips for researchers.
Thank you, Shannon. That was interesting. We would request the attendees to share their questions for Shannon in the question box. We will address those later towards the end of this session. I would now like to hand over the mic to Dr. Despina, our second speaker. Dr. Despina is an award-winning medical researcher with 181 publications in renowned medical and biomedical journals. The impact of her work is demonstrated by 5,000 plus citations that she has to her credit. She is also the recipient of more than 20 research grants. As a publication and training consultant with Enago Academy, she conducts webinars and workshops to help researchers understand the nuances of academic writing and publishing. To date, Dr. Sanadu has attended more than 200 national and international conferences as an invited speaker, served as a peer reviewer for 41 international journals, and chaired several seminars. She is also on the editorial board of multiple international and scientific journals. We extend a warm welcome to her and thank her for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Neha, for the kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you today. So the agenda of this presentation will focus on the following 5 items. First of all, ways and importance of acknowledging the sources in a manuscript. 2, understanding the significance of promoting your research. Awareness of various strategies to boost citations. How to effectively use academic and social media networks. And 5, measuring the impact of the applied promotion strategy that you're pursuing. So let's start with the first point in our agenda, ways and importance of acknowledging the sources when preparing your work for publication. So how do we do that? We use citations. What are citations? Just to set the basics for our discussion, when we use the term citation, we mean the text reference and acknowledgement of any documented information in another document. Now, this will include a reference list, which corresponds to a complete list of citations appearing at the end of the document, and it illustrates the interconnection of scientific ideas between the existing literature and the current research. So it's very important not only to acknowledge the sources of the material that you may be referring to, the material you may be using to perform parts of your work, but also to show how your own work connects to what has already been known, has already been published in the field. Now, why should authors cite? There's a number of very important reasons. Now, first of all, it shows respect for the individuals and the work that you're citing. So it acknowledges the work of other scholars. This is extremely important because the same way you want your work to be acknowledged, it's important for the others to feel the same way. It shows respect to academic writing standards. This is the official way to do it, the fair way to do it. It facilitates literature survey. It makes it easy for others to identify your sources, look them up, read more about them. It gives credibility to your work. It provides the evidence that supports the statements made in the paper. It helps others trace the source of that work and demonstrates awareness of the relevant literature, your awareness, your in-depth understanding and knowledge of the field, and therefore, in a way, gives more credit, increases the importance, the validity of your work because it's all put in perspective. Now, what should authors cite? We need to cite any quotes, of course, by another person, direct or interpreted, paraphrased. Anything that we quote needs to be acknowledged and cited as such. Any original research that we've taken into consideration, that we're referring to, results of which we're mentioning, comparisons to which we're making, anything relevant to other sources. When we mention them or use them in any way in our text, we need to refer to them. Statistics from another source, for example, populations, results of surveys, etc. Any tables, figures, diagrams, any images that have been created by someone else need to be acknowledged. The source needs to be acknowledged. Also, if we are bringing up any controversial facts, opinions, or dates from another source, we need to provide that source. And of course, if we've used data from other studies, even if we've incorporated them in a meta-analysis that's been performed, we need to acknowledge that source. Very important. Now, what we don't need to cite, this is also important to understand. We don't need to cite historical overviews, summaries of historical events, for example, that are just mentioned by multiple sources. Any own observations, your own observations or findings, your ideas or your own research results, they only need to be cited if you've published them elsewhere, and therefore you need to cite that publications of yours, even if it's yours. But if it has not been published, it's your idea, it's your thought, it's your findings, you don't need to provide a citation. Conclusions don't need a citation because they're your conclusions from your thinking, your processing. In a manuscript, you would have already acknowledged the sources that you used to retrieve data from or information from. But in your conclusions, these are yours. And also anything that's common knowledge. These would not need a citation. Information that can be found in a significant number of sources. Now, different types of citation data. We have articles that get cited and have a citation impact. We have authors that get cited, and then you have the number of their papers that have been cited, the number of citations these authors have received, the average number of citations these authors have received. And then we have different metrics to measure, if you want, the impact of the work of a person, of a scientist. And there's different metrics such as the H index or the G index and various other metrics that at different times or different places are used more frequently. So by measuring the citations, in a way you can appreciate the impact that an article has had or an author has had or even a journal has. That's how we have the journal impact factor. It takes into considerations the citations that the articles published in that journal have received. And then this is used again to make various calculations for different factors and indices used to measure the impact of a journal, such as, for example, the eigenfactor, which is a quantitative and qualitative marker. Now, so what is a citation count? For example, when it comes to a paper, this is an example here, you see the title of the paper, you see some information, the author and the date, but you also see how many people have cited this paper, this manuscript, this publication. So for example, this specific one was published in 1951, and since it's been cited by 213,000 other sources, other publications. So a citation count is the frequency of citations received by researchers for a previously published article. It is used as a reliable measure of the significance of the source of information. And that's why it's so important to cite the work of others. And this is why it's so important to have your work cited by others. It's a measure of significance at the end of the day. It facilitates the process of knowing the impact of a journal, as well as assessing and analyzing relevant publications in a particular field of interest. For example, how impactful has your publication been in the specific field? How many citations has this manuscript of yours received in comparison to other manuscripts in this field at the same time, or in comparison to other manuscripts in the same journal or in the same department? There's many different ways to look at it. And then there are citation analysis tools that count citations from different sets of publications in order to fully capture an article's impact. Of course, there are limitations of citation metrics, and it's important to bear these in mind. Citing errors can result in separate entries and missed counts. So for example, an article can be cited in 2 or 3 or more different ways. If this happens, it's a very unfortunate scenario because the counts, each one of these different versions in a way received, will be counted separately, and you won't be able to get the total count. Inconsistencies in author or institutional names can lead to separate entries and missed counts. That's also a problem. You must make sure, for example, that your name appears with the exact same spelling in every publication that you have. Otherwise, it will be counted as different individuals. So, for example, if you spell it with a C or with a K, or other versions thereof, it will be counted as a different individual. Another issue is boosting metrics through self-citation. This is an undesirable practice and can lead to miscalculation of the true impact of one's work. The number of reads are not accounted for by citation metrics, so your manuscript may not have been cited as many times, but it may have been read by thousands and thousands of people. So the number of reads is not appreciated by these metrics. And then, of course, there are inconsistencies in the source used by different databases, which can result in inconsistencies in those metrics. So why is it important to be cited? To quantify the impact of academic literature and scholarly communication. For example, in bibliometrics. For journals, it's very important so that their impact factor can be calculated. For universities and funding bodies, it is really important because it's a way to demonstrate the excellence of the work performed by their organization. And for researchers, it's very important so as to demonstrate the impact of their work at the international community level, and this way to support their career progression, their recognition by the scientific community, new appointments, tenures, promotions, collaborations, even funding. Being able to demonstrate that your work is impactful is very important in order to get acknowledged, recognized, and honored where appropriate for your work. Let's look into more detail about into the importance of promoting your research and how this is directly related to the impact of your work. Why is it important to promote your research? First of all, to increase visibility, so people become aware of what you do, what you have discovered, what implications this work of yours has. Two, for better research impact, in order for others to be able to make the most of your findings, to build on them and extend or go in depth into an area that you've already unveiled, you've already discovered. They need to know about it. Higher citations, of course, the more people read and know about your work, the more chances that it will get cited. Scholarly reputation, people need to know what you do in order to recognize the value of your contribution. Better funding opportunities. All funding bodies want to support individuals who have a proven track record of successful research projects. And of course, building collaborations. The more people know about you and your work and appreciate your work and admire your work, the more they will want to reach out, get to know you, interact with you, apply for grants with you, collaborate with you, and so on. So what can researchers do to promote their work? There's the conventional methods that we all need to be aware of and refresh our memory on those. And there's the trending methods. There's an evolving list of tools that we now have available in order to promote our research. So under conventional methods, you may already be familiar with scholarly collaboration, presenting at conferences or e-conferences nowadays, writing review articles, and citing your own research where appropriate. But then we have trending methods, a number of trending methods, which include using social media networks, using professional networks, making papers more accessible, using open access versions and different servers, and of course getting an ORCID yourself. Let's look now into more detail into the conventional methods for promoting one's research. First of all, the impact of international collaboration on citation count. So international collaborations, it goes without saying, can help tremendously to boost your citations because you have your own large network of individuals who know about your work, and they will be talking and citing and presenting maybe parts of your collaboration to their own networks and colleagues around the world. The average number of citations received per article, it has been shown that it increases with each additional collaborating country. And that's a very interesting piece of information that directly proves this point. The more international your network, the more collaborations you have around the globe, the more likely that you have a bigger, higher number of citations for your work. And then the effective correlation of scholarly collaboration and citation boost is much stronger for developing countries, the more international collaborations they are involved in. Now, if we were to look at a graphical representation of the impact of international collaboration, you would see here how the field-weighted citation impact correlates with international collaboration, and you can see in this graph how they go hand in hand, and as the percent of international collaboration increases, you have an increase in the field-weighted citation impact. Now, another approach is presenting your work at conferences, live conferences, in person or online. The online offers a fantastic opportunity for people who may have not been otherwise able to travel or present their work. So there's a lot more opportunity to do this with fewer financial means because you don't have to travel as much and without as much time. The time that we used to need to devote to travel, sometimes on the other side of the globe, in order to give our presentation. So hybrid conferences or online conferences are increasing tremendously the opportunities to participate and present your work. So these conferences as a whole are a great opportunity to first of all get an overview of ongoing research in the field, strengthen your research network and build collaborations, meet experts and get feedback on research work, and of course create interest among participants about your research work. Now, of course, when we're talking about the online version of conferences, you have less face-to-face interaction. And we very much need more tools and approaches to have the opportunity to meet individuals online in the context of those conferences, those electronic conferences. However, there's always the live meetings that are taking place, and there you can use all the traditional classical approaches of reaching out to other experts in your field, getting to know them, expanding your network. Now, when it comes to citing your previous work, very important to do so when and where appropriate. You don't want to oversight your work, and you don't want to have an unfounded number of self-citations. So do cite your work if the current study is a continuation of previous work that you've done, or if it's based on it. So obviously there's a direct link, there's very valid reasons for citing it. The ratio of the number of self-cites to external ones is comparable to that of others in the field, so that you don't have a manuscript that's full of citations of your previous work, disregarding other publications that are important in this field. And also, if a researcher is building a coherent piece of work in a given field, so if it really makes sense to cite this work of yours, this previous work of yours. But let's also look at some trending methods for promoting research, because there's so many opportunities that one can now capitalize on. And I'd like to start with the importance of carefully selecting your keywords. And the reason I'm emphasizing this point is because when we go on Google and we start searching for different pieces of information, we search with keywords. So if you have managed to use the most appropriate keywords for your work, then more people are likely to come by it when they perform their different searches. So search engine optimization is very important in ensuring that a work appears as high as possible in search engine results. Most likely, the person seeking a certain piece of information will not go through 10, 15 different pages on a Google search. They'll probably go through the first page, maybe through the second, and much fewer times beyond that. So keywords can really help the peers in your field search for a paper using various abstracting and indexing services. So authors must use established, subject-specific, and index-standardized terms as keywords, because this increases the chances of the person out there seeking for a specific piece of information will be able to identify their work, your work, and consequently cite it. Use the same keywords and phrases repeatedly in the title and the abstract, because this increases the chances of your specific piece of work coming up at the very top of a search. Making a paper more accessible. This is really important. It's so frustrating, and it really decreases the chances of one's work being cited when the community, the scientific community, is searching for it, but they can only find the title, but not really the full text. So share the free e-prints, share data on various platforms like Figshare or Dyrad, self-archive in institutional or subject-based repositories or personal servers or profile pages, and try to publish in open access journals to increase the chances of people being able to access it, access the full text, use the full text, and therefore cite your work. It's very easy and fast and important to also create an ORCID ID. ORCID is a persistent identifier to distinguish researchers from each other. So especially for people who have high chances of having a common last name or common initials and last name, it's very important to have their own ORCID ID. We should all have our own ORCID ID, the same way that manuscripts now have their own DOI, and can be directly, immediately identified. Same goes for ORCID. It's our scientific ID, very much used around the world. It solves the problem of multiple researchers having the same name, as I mentioned, but also many publishers, institutions, and funders have embraced the ORCID ID, which means that they will want to check up on someone's ORCID ID to have a better view of the work. ORCID integrates key research workflows of researchers, such as manuscripts and grant submissions, and it also knits together scholarly collaboration networks and wider industry tools. So it's really something to bear in mind and go ahead with if you haven't already done so. Writing and maintaining a blog can also be very useful. A blog is a forum to check new ideas and promote publications to different audiences. Authors can use it to provide regular updates, highlight their research, provide links to published work, etc. It's depending on the different tools one uses, you can have different ways creative ways to decorate, if you want, your blog to attract attention, different ways to capture your audience. So the title and headline you choose must be carefully designed to draw the attention of as many readers as possible. But also you want the scientific content to be robust, but also you want a visually appealing experience for the people who visit your blog. So try to keep it as neat and organized, easy to read, enjoyable to visit. Writers in a blog can share information about work in progress as well as work that's been completed and published, but keeping it regularly updated is important because this maintains a momentum and maintains a systematic interaction with your readers, your followers, if you want. And also, through a blog, authors can share feedback for work done by other researchers and therefore start an interaction that could even potentially turn into a collaboration in the future. Another thought to consider is creating your own website, or a website for your lab, for your team, a website for a specific project of yours, but a website where more information can be presented. There's many leading labs and researchers in the world that have their own websites, and often this is very useful to include in grant applications, reference to your professional website or your lab's or your team's professional website. These websites, it's advisable to provide information such as the following. What are the current research projects? What's the ongoing focus of your work? So what information will people be able to find there? If it's a personal website, it's important to provide some information about your educational background. Who are you? Where are you coming from? Past and current affiliations and positions. This helps people get to know who you are. Individual and group achievements. This helps people appreciate the importance of the work that you do. Publications in a chronological order so people can follow the progress of your work and have a better understanding where you're coming from when you talk and present your latest publications and achievements. You can list key collaborators. Again, this is a way to promote your research network and potentially attract more members to this network of yours. It's nice and useful to list students, postdoctoral fellows, and other staff, the members in your lab, for multiple reasons. This gives credit to their work, to their contribution, demonstrates how much you appreciate their role in the team, but also when they move on to different positions, it will always be known that you've been part of their education of their training. So when they end up becoming professors and directors in other research centers, there will be this piece of evidence there that you made a contribution towards this direction. And of course, in such a website, you need to acknowledge, you should acknowledge, and it gives you credit to acknowledge the funding sources that have enabled you to perform your work. Now, what about digital media networking and how can this be helpful for us? How to use digital media. So there's several different steps one can take. First of all, create and maintain an online profile, engage in scholarly communications networks, build a social networking profile, monitor progress, and measure success. Some examples of tools, websites that you can use to do that would be academia.edu. It's a platform where you can share your research, monitor the impact of your publications, follow other academics, and link your profile to other social media accounts. Another one that's also very well known and widely used is ResearchGate, where again you can share your research, join discussion groups, so you have this aspect of interaction, follow other academics, get a ResearchGate score, and of course each one of those has a number of other capabilities and tools that they offer. So they're definitely worth exploring, and it's worth for you determining how you can make the most of them depending on your needs. There are several reference management tools that you can use to prepare your citations and to manage your own references. Some prime examples would be Mendeley, Redcube, Citations, and Zotero. So Mendeley would be one of the available options to manage references, connect with fellow researchers, share unpublished data, start and or participate in a discussion, and also monitor the impact of your work. Redcube would be a great place to find, read, manage, and cite references. Citations is another tool to find, share, and manage papers, but also article recommendations are provided there. And then Zotero, another example, a great tool to collect, organize, cite references, as well as share and collaborate with peers. So you see how there's an overlap, but also some unique characteristics in each one of the available tools. And of course, I need to emphasize that these are just examples. There's many more tools out there. And if you devote just a little bit of time searching the ones that you enjoy using the best, and the ones that can best fulfill, help you fulfill your goals, then you will have a good toolbox in place to get you started. Now, Google Scholar is something that everybody needs to be aware of. Is one of the most popular online search engines for scholarly literature. You've probably used it already. Researchers can create their own profiles via Google Scholar Citations, and it keeps researchers updated about new research in the field, as well as helping to monitor citations to published work. So it's out there, it's freely available, very easy to use, and it not only it shows some summary, a list of all your publications, for example, it also calculates and demonstrates, provides graphs of the citations that each one of your publications has received, the citations you've been receiving every year, the H index that you have currently or in the past, the I-10 index, etc. So it's a helpful tool. It's something that people visit a lot. So go for it. Make your account. It's easy. It's out there. People will have good chances of identifying you and seeing your work in Google Scholar. Now, LinkedIn, of course, a very well-established platform. It helps researchers connect globally with other scholars. and it helps building an audience for your work. It also helps maintaining relationships with colleagues, peers, and even acquaintances. It's used by millions of people worldwide, and indeed, it has proven a great way to not only stay connected but also find jobs, create networks, collaborations, etc. Something definitely to consider when you're building your armamentarium of different tools. So how to use LinkedIn to promote your work? Let's look into this in a little more detail. You can make a powerful and concise profile, and it's best if it's concise because then people will have more chances of reading it, people who don't know you. It's a great way, and you need to find ways to highlight your work there in a way that is appropriate, is objective, and it's attractive. You can add videos, presentations, documents. You can include your ORCID ID. You can showcase honors and awards you have received. And it's a great way to demonstrate publicly the progress of your work. Then there's Twitter. Everybody knows of Twitter. It's the largest microblogging platform in the world. It helps to keep track of emerging trends, generate discussions, get feedback, and help disseminate research. It helps authors build reputation within their research area and strengthen their work. So definitely worth considering it as one of those tools available for you out there to promote your research. The role of Twitter in science publication and communication, not trivial at all. And in this graphic, you can see how many different roles it plays in the scientific world, from sharing ideas, starting discussions, enabling and promoting collaboration, giving ideas for experimentation, announcing publications, promoting publications, disseminating discoveries, reaching out to individuals for information, for collaborations, for publicizing and educating the broader audience. So many different roles that Twitter can play. Definitely worth considering. It's interesting to note some of the statistics in this page. 55% of followers are scientists, science students, scientific organizations. The Twitter, obviously, as you know, is free and vastly increases professional network size and diversity. And 55% of academic Twitter users received their PhD less than 5 years ago. This gives you an idea of the audience that you'll be reaching out to. And of course, median Twitter following is 730 times larger than median university department size. So again, valuable little pieces of information to show you how Twitter could have a big impact. And then there's Facebook. It provides opportunities to promote your research work. It's so common among those who have Facebook accounts to announce a new publication, a new discovery, a new assignment that they've undertaken, new positions or awards. All this is promoting your work, and it's easy for others to share it with their network. So a very fast way to promote your work to a long chain of other scientists in the same or other fields. It's easy for researchers to share links of recently published work, of relevant news, to link to an award announcement. So you can provide them through your announcement, direct access to the source of this information, be it the abstract, the conference where you're giving a presentation, the actual journal where your manuscript has been published, etc. A recent survey, it's interesting to note, in Nature showed that 15% of surveyed scientists are regular Facebook users, and over 20% of them post work-related content. This can vary from among different countries, and it depends to a large extent on the preferences of the individual, but it's certainly a trend that appears to be increasing over time, promoting research through these digital tools that are available to us. Then there's YouTube, something you may or have not thought of as a way to promote your research, but preparing a short animated video based on a research study and posting it on YouTube can help improve the visibility of your research. Posting vlogs regarding a research study or related topic can create interest among the viewers. And this way, you may be reaching out to viewers, to audiences that are more likely to use YouTube or more frequently use YouTube to access information. And of course, the link to a research paper, to the research paper or the research papers that you're making the video about, can always be integrated inside the video so people can see it and use it to access your work. So this way, you're really expanding the approaches that you're using, and as a consequence, the audiences that you're reaching out to. And how do we track the progress? There's different tools available. Some of us may be more aware of them than others, but there are several different tools that are definitely worth considering and looking into further. There's the impact story, there's altmetric, plum analytics, all different tools that help you measure and view the statistics of your work in different ways. For example, altmetric actually appears automatically in some journals next to different articles, and it can show you how many times this article has been tweeted or blogged, or how many Facebook pages refer to it, how many Google posts it has, how many readers on Mendeley, etc. So different tools are available to help you track progress, and this makes it more exciting, if you want, and easier to track the progress. And let's look into impact story. First, we have what can impact story offer? Allow researchers to discover metrics for their work from scholarly and popular social media. It allows to import papers, data sets, software, slide decks, and other scholarly products into a single profile. Allows third-party services like Figshare or Orsted, etc., to get connected to the account and get automatic updates and import new research. And researchers can get an idea of who is benchmarking, recommending, saving, and citing their work by analyzing all the different metrics that are available. And researchers, through these tools, can also highlight their key achievements on the profile page that is available. Now, what about altmetric? As we mentioned earlier on as an example, it helps to gather data from social media sources, blogs, mainstream media, and reference tools. Researchers can monitor online activity and discussion in real time and have a closer and more live, if you want, appreciation of the impact of their work. Altmetric data can be included in progress reports or to endorse profiles. It helps researchers benchmark their activities against others in the field, and it enables researchers to receive alerts each time the work is mentioned, which can build the momentum and excitement to see the broader impact almost on real time that your work is having. Then there's the altmetric score, which is an indicator of the attention received by an article. And then we mentioned plum analytics. Let's look what that what this can offer. So it accumulates research metrics for all types of scholarly research output. The metrics are categorized into 5 groups: usage, captures, mentions, social media, and citations. It tracks 67 types of output, including books, book chapters, posters, and tracked multiple versions of the same article, such as the preprints and the published, green open access, etc., which is also important. And then it categorizes metrics for clear understanding and analysis and offers relatively more sources of metrics. So we have a 3-step promotion strategy. Create an ORCID, use academic social networks, make your website, and write blogs. So this is a way to introduce yourself if you want and open up discussions. There's the dissemination step through collaborations by presenting at conferences, writing review articles, sharing your data and figures, citing your previous research, and then tracking progress. How is your work and the promotion of your work progressing? And this is by using traditional metrics and alternative metrics and making the most of the tools that are available for you out there. So it's a combination of being active, having a strategy, identifying the tools and the platforms that serve you and your best and your interest best, and making the strategy, the time plan to incorporate them in your daily life so as to make the most of them. So it's both having the know-how, the determination, and the persistence to continue with this plan and see it through. Let's have a quick summary now of what we have been discussing. Cite your previous work when it is relevant to your new article. Citations are important. Choose your keywords wisely so that they can appear in a database. They can appear in database searches, that they come up and they come at the top or as close to the top as possible. Try to repeat keywords and phrases in title and abstract so as to increase the chances that it comes to the top of the list. Make sure that you use your name consistently. It sounds very simple, but it can create a lot of problems in the accidental cases when it's not. And try to remember to use your ORCID ID. Have an ORCID ID, use it consistently. This is an identifier you can't go wrong with. All your work will be connected to that. Submit your pre or post publication prints to a popular repository so as to increase accessibility of your article. It's not enough to just submit it and publish it. Try to promote it, make it accessible. People won't cite it easily if they can only read the title or the abstract. They often need to see the whole thing, and that's how you'll increase your chances of getting citations. Share your data on websites like Figshare to self-archive your articles and to increase the citation counts. Increase the visibility of your work among researchers by presenting in conferences and seminars. Try to participate in such opportunities. They're fantastic for getting to know what others do in the field, reaching out, as well as sharing what you do, what you have achieved, and attracting interest towards you and your work. Use social media. They're out there. They're available. Such a big range of different media for you to share the links of your published manuscripts and promote your research. Have your own strategy, the steps, prioritize which steps serve you best, maybe at different times of your career, maybe in different phases of the year, depending what your goals are. Options to create a blog or a website dedicated to your work. But also all the different tools that are out there. Make your selection. Decide at which time it would be best to use each one of them and how. It's non-trivial the time required to keep updating all these different media and tools. So it's important, and that's why I keep referring to it, not just to be aware of them, to create a blog and never populate it. You have to make a strategy that's realistic for you, based on the time you have available, based on what will be more pleasant for you to use, and therefore you'll be more likely to keep up with it. It's quite disappointing to have accounts that you never use. So when people actually reach it, they reach a dead end because it hasn't been updated for ages. So choose the ones that you enjoy using and you will be using, so that you build a momentum, an interaction, you build your audience, you build your network, and you as well as they enjoy this interaction. And of course, write review papers or press releases when and where possible and appropriate to showcase the evolution of your research, or a new grant that you have received, or the progress of this grant and its impact in the broader community. But when talking about review papers in specific, usually review papers have higher chances of being cited, and through these review papers, people can get more familiar with your work as a broad, as a whole. So all these different tools, traditional or not, electronic or paper, written or oral, many different tools available for you to choose from, and go ahead to cite the work of others and attract citations for your own work, but also collaborations and the generation of a beautiful network that will promote your research and open new opportunities, new doors for you, with new opportunities for the future. Thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to discussing the questions you may have.
Thank you, Despina, for such wonderful, informative session. We are now open to taking questions. We request all the attendees to kindly send us their queries using the questions tab in the control panel. The first question is, please explain meta-analysis.
Thank you. For some reason, I'm having a problem seeing the question. So yes, if you can please read them for me, it would be fantastic. Thank you. So meta-analysis is actually an entire field of research where you're using data that have already been made publicly available from different sources, and you are analyzing them, you're filtering, choosing which ones are appropriate to answer specific new scientific specific questions, and you're analyzing them all together. So a new analysis with a lot of data from different sources, filtered, normalized appropriately in order to answer a new scientific question. So this takes this needs specific expertise and specific statistics or bioinformatical tools to perform.
All right. The second question is, are open access journals better than paid ones? Where would be the better impact?
Better is a relative word. Thank you for this question. So it depends on what means by better. There are many very high impact journals that are either open or on a fee for service basis. They have a different charging actually rules. However, the open access versions of manuscripts have a lot more chances of being cited because they're more easily accessible to a broader audience. So if better refers to what will people cite more frequently, they will cite more frequently what they can have access to. And since more people everybody basically has access to the open access journals and manuscripts, you increase your chances of being cited. But I do not want this to be misinterpreted as using the word better for the quality of a journal. It's used only for chances of getting cited.
The
And
next
Desvina,
question
I
is,
think actually, Sneha, if I could like chime in there, Desvina, I think you make a really good point, right? In that, you know, just because a journal is open access does not attribute the value of the quality of the journal. So it's important for that researcher or whoever is downloading that content to investigate the quality of the journal and understanding the peer review process that the journal goes through when publishing that content. And so, you know, I think there is a definite valuation to what better looks like, but it's not based on whether a journal is publishing open access or whether there is a subscriber requirement for people to access that content. So that's a really important point that I think the audience should take home with them, is to really understand the peer review process that the journals are using when publishing their content.
Very true. Thank you, Shannon, for elaborating on this. It's very important to clarify this.
right. The next question is, how do you cite a citation from the secondary source?
A citation from a secondary source. So you mean if you've read in a paper about a third paper? It depends on what information you will be talking about. So if you're talking purely about the original source of the information, then you cite that original source. If you're talking about a conclusion that the intermediate, if you want, source made based on the original, then you cite the conclusion of the intermediate source. If you're referring to different points that these two publications made, then you're referring to both of them. I hope that's clear, and I hope I understood the question right.
The next question is, are there any apps to monitor your progress for free?
To monitor your own personal progress, it depends on the different, well, there's different apps that measure different aspects of your progress. So for example, on Google Scholar, you can see how your H-index and your citations are progressing over time. In altmetrics, you can measure the metrics for specific metrics, a broad range of metrics for your different articles. So it really depends, and there's many other tools available out there that it's really worth investing a little bit of time to search, but it greatly depends on what aspects of your progress you want measured.
The next question is, if an article is published in a journal that is not open access, can the author still upload it on ResearchGate?
There's very specific rules that come from different publishers, and it's very important to be aware of those rules and respect them. So different publishers will be very specific as to how you should approach this. So please check with the journal every time. You may be allowed to upload on specific servers, but not others. You may not be allowed to upload, or they may give you a time window where you tell you can upload it before or after that time point. So check with the journal, the very specific journal and publisher you'll be publishing at.
The next question is, what social media have you chosen for your own research?
So for me personally, time is a big issue because I have a very broad range of major commitments. So I prefer to use media that do not require day-to-day updating. I use Facebook, I use LinkedIn sometimes, Facebook more frequently, a website for our team, and a personal website. But this is very personal, and it really depends where in the world you are and what the audience you're aiming at is more likely to use to find you.
Shannon, would you want to share your inputs?
Yeah. So from a publisher standpoint or a professional society standpoint, we have we use pretty much all of the social media platforms. We have Twitter, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, LinkedIn. I will tell you from a professional society standpoint, we see a lot of engagement on LinkedIn and Twitter. That's where most of our community lives. I think once publishers and researchers get into more of the habit of sharing content visually, then I think that's an area for Instagram to service that. But for right now, when I'm looking at how are we going to reach the largest number of people in our community, we're looking at LinkedIn and Twitter because that's where most of our community lives, as far as engagement and when they're sharing their research.
All right. The next question is, what can be done to have citations for research paper that are uploaded on OrcID and Google Scholar?
I'm not sure I understand the question here. You mean how to attract citations? Because in terms of how to attract citations, you can use any or all of the approaches that we have discussed, promoting your research as a whole or promoting specific papers that you've published through all the different avenues that we discussed are ways to attract more citations to your work. I'm not sure if this was the question, but please rephrase if it wasn't.
Noted. The next question is, what is the most adequate frequency of updating the profiles? Does it change depending on tools?
Yes, that is very much the case. For example, on Facebook, you can choose the frequency yourself. If you have a blog, you need to maintain a momentum in order for your the people who follow it to have a sense as to how frequently to check up with you. Twitter, again, it's nice to have a more frequent interaction with your network. So it really depends on the platform that you're using, and of course, weighing in what information do you have to share, how often do you have new pieces of information to share, be it your discovery or just commenting on something interesting and relevant that you saw, and how much time you have to devote in updating each of these platforms. And that's why I think it's very important to develop your own strategy, promotion strategy. What serves you, all aspects of you and your daily life and your professional goals to consider together.
The next question is, how do you suggest to cite retracted papers? You pointed out to cite also controversial research. A remark would also be careful about copyright. Example, Elsevier has lawyers that take down PDFs from ResearchGate, etc.
Okay, so first of all, about retracted papers, I would not cite them. They've been retracted. Two, when it comes to controversial topics, certainly in research, there are controversial findings. There are disagreements in the literature. There's people who may have found the exact opposite result. They've had the exact opposite result, even if they've been looking at the very same scientific question. So it really depends on what you're writing about. But in those cases where there are ongoing controversies in the field, it's important to demonstrate that you are aware of those controversies. You understand that they are there, you appreciate them. If you have an opinion based on your discoveries and based on your knowledge, you can express it. But in those cases, you cite all sides of this controversy, the people who found A and support A, and the people who found B and support B, because this demonstrates your understanding of the field, and then if you want, where you position yourself and where your findings contribute in this potential debate in your field. But this was a very long question, and it had another aspect to it as well. So Sneha, would you like to read the second part of that question, please?
Sure, I'll do that. I remark would also be to be careful about copyright. Example, Elsevier's has lawyers that can take down PDFs from ResearchGate.
Okay, so when you're citing, if we're still talking about citing one's work, you're citing the work, so you're not copying or reproducing that work, so you don't have any issues there. When it comes to uploading your work, this brings us back to a previous question where you can't upload any work of yours anywhere unless you have the full copyrights or permission for whoever has, maybe the publisher or whoever has the copyrights of your work. So this is something that you need to clarify before uploading any work where you don't have full copyrights. Yes.
All right. We do have a clarification from the attendee for the previous Org and Google Scholar question. So she says that she has uploaded a lot of papers on OrgID and Google Scholar as well, but after a year the citation is 0 still. Can you suggest how to improve?
Of course, through all the different avenues that we discussed in this presentation. That's what this presentation was all about. So promote your research, use Facebook, use Instagram, as Shannon mentioned, use Twitter, use conferences to present your work. People need to be made aware of it. So try to build a network and reach out within and beyond that network to make people aware of your research. It's not just a matter of making it appear in ORCID as a paper or making it appear in Google Scholar. You need to use as many avenues as possible until you find the ones that are best suited for you, because maybe the audience that should be reached for this specific area that you're working on has not been reached through the specific avenue that you're pursuing. So not everybody uses all the tools, and you may find that specific scientific communities are more keen to use some or others of the tools available.
All right. Due to
Justina,
time
and
constraints,
actually,
sorry.
if I could just chime in there, for this attendee, you make a really good point. I think one of the other options, whether you want to consider this a shameless plug or not, is getting involved with scholarly societies like the Electrochemical Society, like American Chemical Society or Materials Research Society, because we work on building those networks of researchers, whether that is through publications or holding conferences, honors and awards, membership. And so that's our goal, is to service those communities and to publish and promote that research. So, it doesn't necessarily always have to focus on the social media aspect, but in today's day and age, social media plays a huge part in that. The other piece is getting involved in that community in particular. So figuring out where that research lives, what active community, what organization supports that, and seeing if there are avenues to get engaged with those groups.
Yes, very, very, very true. I was hoping you would make this comment, Shannon.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. The last question for today, and due to time constraints, we will have to end the session. However, we've made a note of all the questions that we've received, and we will send an email response as soon as possible. The last question is importance in choosing a research topic for getting more citation.
Excellent, excellent question. That's a whole different talk in itself. But it's very important to align what your specific scientific interests are with what are the trends in your field. The closer these two are aligned, then the more popular the outcome of your research will be, especially the more significant your findings are. But this, of course, varies considerably among different fields and among different across different times. So it takes a lot of reading, an understanding of the literature, close follow-up of the literature to know exactly where your field stands currently, and being able to identify either alone or together with your mentors or together with highly esteemed collaborators or colleagues of yours, being able to appreciate what are the most cutting edge questions, scientific questions in that area, and which ones of them would be realistic for you to try and address. Along these lines, it's important to consider popular trending approaches to answering different questions, popular tools to use, or not just popular, but cutting edge tools to use. So you're right there at the forefront of developments in your area. And in this process, it's important to choose your partners carefully because inevitably you won't be an expert on everything. Not all the methodologies, all the cutting edge methodologies, or all the cutting edge approaches that may need to be integrated in order to address cutting edge questions. So that's where you need a solid network of experts that you have good communication with and a good fruitful interaction with.
All right. Thank you, Despina and Shannon. Our attendees have certainly gained a lot of critical information from this session. We would once again like to thank all the attendees for joining the webinar. Please find the discount codes for our editing and publication support services in the chat box. We would also request you all to please fill the feedback survey displayed after you leave the webinar. Your participation will allow us to evaluate the effectiveness of our webinar. Have a good day. Thank you.